Royals looks like a pug that's on vacation in the south of France.
You think you offended me? I'm unoffendable, mate. So.
I was a pug in the south of France for 4 years.
Welcome to another episode of the Aussie Rugby Show, brought to you by Extra Hop. Stops breaches 84% faster. I'm Louise Ransom, joined by Drew, Halsey and Sean. What are you laughing at?
I'm just so happy to be back here at Rugby Australia, about to sink our teeth into another episode. I'm pumped. And we're coming off the back of our most watched show ever. So
Yeah, that's
lots
cool.
to be excited about.
What are we talking about? Like what sort of numbers? Like heaps of people?
Check the website, please.
Heaps of people.
Okay. Are you also happy because you're quite comfortable on this couch?
Do you know what? I can actually breathe out now, which is terrific. I've gone 28 weeks straight. Sucking it in.
I was late here.
It's like you're doing a TV show in high altitude. Sorry.
I was late on the way here. I forgot my shoes, and I was like, "What do I need shoes for?" I'm sitting next to a bloke that hasn't worn them once all year, so I've gone with thongs too.
Oh, it's a very good point. Yeah, great to be back at Rugby Australia for another week. What got you over the weekend?
You know what? Not much got me. A bit flat after that result over the weekend. It's a great opportunity for us to go ahead in this Tri-Nations tournament, and we just didn't take it. So, yeah, not much got me.
It seems to be, if you think back to the last 10 years of the Wallabies, we get a chance every now and then to grab the limelight, know other codes on, really make a mark. Newcastle, great sporting town, and then everyone sort of feels a little bit flat after it, because there's always two versions of a draw. There's the team that
Happy to
happier,
take it, yeah.
and that's Argentina, because where they're sitting at the moment. What got me was the softer side of Pablo Matera. I think we've seen him rip and rage throughout the course of his career, but giving his jersey away to some young fan behind the post, that was a nice moment.
The kid was like lost it.
Yeah.
It was like when people used to see Elvis for the first time with the Beatles. Like, he broke down over Pablo Matera.
That was his moment, wasn't it?
That was his moment. It was very cool. You know what else was really cool? Last Friday, Lou and I got to sit on the judging panel for the Cauliflower Club's most ordinary rig competition in Australian rugby.
Hang on, what qualified you to get on that panel?
Well, there was Mummy, Robbo.
Previous winner.
Hey, what about me?
Alicia Lucas.
There's potential.
And Lou and I, and this ended up being the winner. Are you ready for this?
I don't know.
This is Henry
very
McInnes, and he is horrific. Like, look at the leg spread, and proud of it, and we're in the budgie smugglers.
Well adjudicated.
So Henry and the rest of the entrants, they go into a calendar. The Cauliflower Club will print up a calendar of the most ordinary rigs in Australian rugby, raising money for charity. It's a great setup, but my God, you'd be just wiping Vaso all over that calendar to smear away.
Would you, Sean?
The ordinary. No, well, hang on the calendar to just smear away any
Where did we just go
potential
there?
clear images. You know what I'm saying? Or just throw them in.
There's a lot of back hair in that calendar.
There's a dude named Drew, Drew Weaver, the Weave Man, and he was. Do you?
Yeah.
The hairiest bloke I've ever seen. You could have
Good rugby
braided
man.
his shoulder hair. It was horrific.
So when we were in that meeting for the judging panel, I had a cold. But what got me on the weekend, some epic virus, not COVID, got a test straight away. But I thought I just had a normal cold.
You sound a bit fluey, Lou.
Yeah, I still am.
so this is good. This is definitely
stay
1.5
away.
metres.
Yeah, we're doing fine.
I'll be sick
You
next
better
week.
now?
Yeah, feeling better, but like it hit me hard. I was in bed all weekend. Got up just to watch the Wallabies for that sort of 2 hours, and
That
then
wouldn't have
went,
really sparked you, would it?
It didn't actually.
Before we move on, I just got one question to the guys wearing, what are they, thongs?
Halves, yeah.
There's no, you guys aren't at risk of getting Argentina.
Great.
I have copped a little bit of flack over
You've
the
copped
week.
a lot.
How I pronounce Argentina.
How do you
had to be
say that?
said.
What are they called?
It's when I get stuck in between saying Argentina or the Argentinians.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're a foot disease.
Yeah.
Apologies to anyone offended. I do love your country, Mendoza in particular.
I like that.
Tri-Nations, Rocks and Diamonds. We'll start with the shiny things. Drew, what have you got?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one. It's always hard to find something shiny in a performance like that, or a result like that at least. But for me, I'm going to go with the Argentinian number 10 again, Nico Sanchez. 2 weeks in a row, scoring all the points for his country and steering the side around really well, I thought.
I can find diamonds in the Wallabies' performance. It was probably the first 20 or 30 minutes, and the ease at which they got down the right end of the field. and whether that was through smart tactical play or just some individual brilliance. So, we've still got some young players in that side, and I use Pataya again. His attacking ability, Tom Wright. Some of the things those guys did was really promising. Again, we've just got to be a little bit more mature, and our set piece, which we'll talk about in our rocks, probably let us down. But there were some bright moments there for us.
I think, of course there is. I think it's much like a lot of the people who would have watched that game, the result, it just makes you walk away feeling a little bit flat. Like there was a great opportunity for us to go on and potentially put ourselves in a great position to win some silverware, which has been a long time between drinks. And we just, we couldn't get across the line. And again, for too many times, too many weeks this year, we've already been talking about creating opportunities and not executing on it.
Was it exacerbated, that draw, and the fact there was no tries, because the previous 2 weeks we had one of the most incredible, iconic wins in the history of Test rugby last week, and the week before that we had the thriller in Suncorp as well. So we were riding this incredible high. And then we were all hoping, I think, at Newcastle to get a repeat performance. Conditions were good through the first 60. And then I think maybe that might be part of the reason it's in such stark contrast, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. We saw the first 20, 30 minutes and thought this is going to be one really good game. We were throwing everything at them. They were defending like their lives depend on it. And then it just kind of hit the brakes. And that flows into my rock. I'm going to give you a couple of rocks this week.
Can I have a diamond, or are you just going to keep talking?
Are you still here, are you? Okay, go for it.
My diamond is,
things this week.
let me swing into this. Actually, my diamond was going to be the Argentinian defence. These guys, unbelievable. Won't be broken down, refuse to roll over. That was one. And the other was the crowd in Newcastle. I was lucky enough to do a function that started at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon.
Did you see the game?
No, I was luckily not in a position to...
Being professional.
I was being professional. It ran from 2 to 6. Wow. And Newcastle rugby people are great people. And so many of the people in the room also had one guy next to me driven down from Goondiwindi up on the border there in QLD and NSW. Bloke had come in from Warren. So next year we've got more Newcastle, and I couldn't be happier about that. It's awesome. They just love it in the Hunter.
It has a fantastic club system and a junior system. Having done a few things up there over the last few years, Maitland, for example, one club, they had something like 8 under-7s teams 2 or 3 years back. They're a really good rugby town, and we hear so much about them being a league town because of the Knights and whatnot, but they're a good rugby town.
Great rugby town, but in the last 2 tests played in Newcastle, 0 tries.
That's a good stat. Yeah. That's a really good stat.
What about your rock?
My rock was the little scuffle that Taniela had. Was it with Sanchez?
There was one with Sanchez,
there was the one there where he was penalty was going to go to you, penalty ends up going to you. I was like, are you kidding? The guy hit you in the bum.
Yeah.
It's a bum punch. And he's going to get penalised for it. And then the old mate retaliated. Come on.
Well, that's my rock too.
Come on.
The officiating overall, again, I'm just going to keep harping on it because there's got to be things that those guys can do during the week that can sanction players. But don't take 15 minutes out of a half a footy checking at the tiniest incidents that really have no bearing on the game. It wasn't thuggery, it wasn't foul play, it was just frustration, which happens in rugby. That was one rock. The other one was the officiating of no yellow cards. The game at some stage...
Well, Hooper had that discussion with at some point saying, what is the warning? What is it? Does it mean he's going to get one?
You don't need a warning for
too much ambiguity
professional foul. Yeah. You need a warning for team infringements, but not for professional foul. That one on half-time, Montoya, how they were pronouncing his name on the weekend, I'm not...
Montoya Tinio, I think.
Montoya Tinio, spot on.
Don't you start.
He was holding onto the ball when the referee was saying, play the ball. That is a professional foul, and he got him 2 minutes into the second half. So clearly... Just think the officiating again, I don't want to just bang on them for the sake of it. Yeah. We're hearing too many communication between the team A, the refs. Just let the game flow.
Hopefully they watch this show and then...
I'm sure they will.
Can change.
I think they will.
People looked frustrated throughout that game though, at the lack of communication or what he was getting back from the ref at different times.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes you've got to have that dialogue with them, and he was asking questions and he felt... There were times where he was getting the answers that he needed, and I think there was that one time where he asked the question he wasn't getting, and he's like, mate, I don't want to harp on it too much. But just prior to saying that, the referee asked him a question, and he answered it, and he just then said, okay, we've had enough. It was almost like he asked him the question but didn't want to hear his answer. But anyway, my rock was just the Australian attack. It's just unimaginative. It's one out. I know that we've got a guy that's an outside back that's playing at 10. He's doing a great job, don't get me wrong, but he's not a 10. Nothing's going through Reece Hodges on set piece. It goes straight to Paisami. Then he might play out the back. Otherwise, it's all our phase plays going off Nick White. It's just very one-out stuff. And we were trying to out-muscle and well, yeah, outmuscle a team that was bigger than us. And because there was just no variation in our attack. And
do you think they manufactured a slightly different game plan because Reece Hodges was number 10?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of what they've done well, like even that Pattaya no try, that was something that was a preset, pre-planned. We saw it against the All Blacks the week before, but on that occasion it was Reece Hodges that put the kick in. I think a lot of what they've been doing well is pre-planned. There's not a lot of eyes up footy because those players just don't play. They're not those instinctive type of, your James O'Connors, your Bernard Foley, the guys that have been a 10 for their entire lives. I know that people say Reece Hodges played 10 as a junior, but at junior level, you put your best player at 10, like we all played 10 at juniors, So I just
Sean
think...
didn't.
No.
I didn't.
Yeah, your second best player didn't play at 10, but I just think our attack was just too one out and predictable, and it was a great opportunity for us to go there and put a score on this team after being so high in emotion the week before, and we created opportunities, we just couldn't finish it. And
you mentioned like the last 2 weeks been on such a high in the quality games. That's what gave me a big case of disappointment so bad, is that there was no yellow cards when there clearly could have been, and we know that yellow cards opens up the game of play. Like, it was so important to that game. We jumped on the back of the moment.
But we're talking yellow cards for cynical,
both sides.
not for slapping.
No, not for the
face rub.
No. Yellow cards for holding onto the ball when the referee's saying let it go. Like, that's what they're there for. Yeah. Just don't think it was officiated well, Lou.
What about you, Lou? Do you have a rock?
Well, I guess it's a rock. Hunter Paisami with his jersey ripped and didn't get a replacement one. What, do they not have a replacement one?
I think that's a diamond almost, Lou. That was like back to the old school days where you see a little bit of tiger stripes on the back shoulder.
But a good point. At half time, you've always got a spare jersey there to put on. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't have put a new, a fresh one on.
Extra Hop Play of the Week time. Sean, what have you got this week?
Yeah, remember to visit extrahop.com as well when you get a spare chance. You watching at home, and you three as well.
I do it daily.
You do? Yeah. I do also.
Quillsy's really good with websites and stuff too, so he definitely has.
So you're giving us the website, but everything starts with the www, is that correct?
And then you just throw Extra Hop or Aussie Rugby Show in the middle of it. Listen, I can't limit it down to one defensive play this week, obviously stopping the breaches.
Lots.
Just a host of the Wallabies clattering into the Pumas across the 80 minutes on Saturday night. It was terrific defence, obviously stays all square, but man, oh man, the Wallabies landed some huge shots. No one winner this week of the Extra Hop Play of the Week. There's a bunch of you. Well done.
Well, time for the check-in now, and we head to Wallabies camp once more here on the Aussie Rugby Show and talk to Tom Wright, who had a pretty great debut in his opening game for the Wallabies a couple of weeks ago, guys. Tom, great to have you on the show. Let's go back to that night. You score on debut with your first touch of the ball and then get a win against the All Blacks. Not a bad way to start, was it?
Yeah, pretty much what dreams are made of, to be fair. Thought, obviously, being able to come away with a win was obviously exactly what the team was after, and a really good bounce back from the week prior.
G'day, Tom. Speaking of your first test for the Wallabies, what was the biggest thing that you noticed in step up from Super Rugby to international footy?
Yeah, I think the two that you just touched on, mate. Obviously, speaking from probably a fair bit of experience there, mate. Yeah, definitely the speed and intensity are something that definitely jumps up when you're training at the highest level and amongst guys, obviously from different franchises and stuff. Fair bit of competitiveness when you first get into camp, and definitely you start to build a lot of connection, and I think it's off the back of the training that you do, and yeah, getting to know other guys off the field and stuff all sort of comes in and around training, sort of on and off the field. Obviously, a bit of a different year this year. We've been in camp for like close to 10 weeks at the moment, so sort of being able to bounce on and off each other's being something that for me has been new as well. So yeah, I thought that's been pretty cool at the same time.
Hey Tom, Halsey here. Well, speaking of Coogee, I know you're in camp there at the moment, just around the corner from where you grew up playing rugby for Clovelly. I watched a lot of your footage when you were young, playing at St Joseph's, and you did play a lot of sevens prior to leaving school. Playing in the Olympics, is that something that you really aspire to do one day?
Oh, I think the way that you just phrased that question, mate, I think the Olympics would be just about on anyone's radar. I think we ran into a few of the guys there today, and it was good to see them back training. And yeah, to answer your question, frankly, I think the sevens would be on anyone's wish list. Obviously focusing on all this stuff here first, but yeah, it'd be awesome to be a part of if the opportunity came up one day.
And Righty, you've obviously got the weekend off, then you've got Argentina to close everything out. How are you going to get your noses in front of Los Pumas? They don't know how to miss tackles. How are you going to spin it around?
No, you're certainly not wrong, mate. They've come over here to obviously Sydney, and put on a couple clinical performances. We're just obviously been a couple of days now since our game, so we've had a bit of time to reflect on what was obviously a fair encounter, but we probably didn't put our best foot forward. So a little bit of decision making that we've got to improve on, and a little bit of accuracy when we first get the ball. So if we can tidy up a couple of those areas, mate, I think we're going to go a long way to putting on a better performance at Bankwest in a couple of weeks.
And a couple of weeks' time, that's when you're officially on holidays. I'd imagine from a player's point of view, it's been a long and draining year for everyone, but in particular players who have spent a lot of time living out of a suitcase. Any plans for the break? When are you meant to be back in Canberra training for next season?
Yeah, I think it's all sort of being finalised still at the moment, mate, in terms of our return date and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, you sort of nailed it. Definitely living out of a suitcase isn't ideal, but in 2020, nothing sort of surprising. And as players, mate, we were just stoked to get back on the field for the Super AU season. And for guys like myself and everyone else in the camp, the first timers or guys that have been around for ages, this is the pinnacle of our sport, and representing your countries. There's nothing better. So yeah, in terms of the sacrifices or the things that we've had to deal with, they are very mild in terms of being able to represent your country and the things that we get to do here.
Mate, you've just said living out of a suitcase. Here's a chance to either throw someone under the bus or talk someone up. Who are you rooming with, and what are they good or bad at?
Well, for the majority of the camp, I've had Robbie Valentini at different stages. I'm actually very blessed that I don't have to do my part in Coogee with him. I've actually got James O'Connor, so it'll be interesting to see what weird and wacky stuff I've got from Rabs over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, Robbie Valentini's awful, snores, doesn't pick up after himself, awful hygiene, the whole kit and caboodle. So yeah, you can run with that, and please run him into the ground.
Oh, no doubt this is the show for that. Tom Wright, thank you so much for joining us here on the Aussie Rugby Show, and go well in a couple of weeks' time against Argentina.
Thanks very much, and thank you to the Bose headphones that we got. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Weekend forecast, it's Argentina taking on the All Blacks. Can they get another famous win? I guess the big question to start off with, guys, is what sort of All Blacks team are we going to see?
Yeah, it's a hard one. They went to their number one A side and got dusted by the Argentinians. So I think we'll probably see a couple of changes, but I think on a larger scale, I think it's pretty close to being their full strength side. What do you reckon? Yeah,
they'll pick what they think is the best team. Like, I know that there's times when they against Argentina last time they played, they probably thought they could give a few of their non-starters a start and give them a bit more time in test, or a bit more experience at test level, but they'll go back into their most not conservative, but their most trusted and experienced starting 15. So in terms of the big question mark will be, can the Argentinians maintain the rage for 3 weeks straight, having not played for so long? That's the biggest challenge. I'd like to think they can, but physically they'll get tested. And also, actually, big week for them. They're going to pop down to recovery in Coogee and give themselves a...
Oh, is that right? What's that about?
Oh, it's just a thing I'm doing on the side.
Of course it is. One of your 15 jobs that you're currently rolling
with. You can't give anyone a plug unless they pay up.
New sponsor, thanks.
They'll be sharp. They'll be fresh and fit.
But in all seriousness, that's the big question. And that's why I think last weekend was a big missed opportunity for us, because these Argentinians have been asked to play 4 high-intensity test matches on the trot, and you'd have to think, after having not played any footy before this, that they're going to have to start to taper off physically, mentally, emotionally, to some degree. We already started seeing some soft tissue stuff started to come in. Went off with their hamstring on the weekend. So I think their starting side at the back end, like in their last test, will be different to the one in their first, purely because of wear and tear and injuries and things like that. So that's what made it so frustrating that our guys couldn't get a job done against them, because I think the Argentinian side this week coming up, and then the one that we'll face the week after, won't be as, match ready as the ones that they've just faced.
And it leaves it open now, off the back of that draw last week. If the All Blacks put a score on Argentina this weekend, I'm pretty sure that almost locks them up for the Rugby Championship. So they are going to be humming.
Do you think that the game that was played on Saturday night, because of how it sort of slowed down towards the late end of the first half and pretty much the entire second half, I feel as though that might work in Argentina's favour of not actually being too exhausted. I'm not saying it wasn't brutal, because the collisions were tough and it was test footy.
The intensity was down a little.
It just didn't look as though there was going to be I reckon they talk high speed running meters now. I just think they would be low, and that's really what guys struggle to recover from the most.
Well, it's all about their recovery, isn't it, Steve?
Comments corner, we have got a lot of traction from last week's segment on this.
Well, I tell you what, a lot of people launched to your defence off the back of these two men addressing one of the trolls on there. You have got a lot of love, rightfully so, from the broader YouTube community, Lou. Hoylesy, not so much. This one comes from Toby Alexander Hughes. Argentina, Hoylesy, question mark. 20 likes. Dan says, that pronunciation was my rock of the week. The basement tape says, oh no, that was my diamond. Drew was too embarrassed. Drew was too shy to correct you first.
I picked it up the first or second time and I thought, do I jump in here and say something? Or?
I picked up some giggles here, and I think I've said it before. I knew I made a
I didn't know you said it so many times. It wasn't until I watched it back and I thot it was just once or twice.
People did pick up on it.
There was a clever tweet, I think, where there was that. Was it Arj Barker, the comedian? Arj, and then the and sign, and someone with tinea.
That I cannot unsee now.
Tinea doesn't look great, I've got to tell you. As someone who wears songs a lot, I'm a bit worried about whatever that presents.
Here's another hint on tinea. It comes at you forever.
Does it?
First caught in year 5, still suffer from it.
Oh, that's tragic.
Tinea of the tongue as well.
Again, there's some confusion from some people around what's cracking. Louis Smith says they mostly talk garbage. It's so biased towards Australia. Again, just read the description, Louis, and you won't need to get through 30 minutes of the Aussie Rugby show.
Louis is a dead
Gavin Nealon, great show and great host. There you go, more love, Lou.
Thanks.
Look, Gav wants to see more highlights. Unfortunately, Gav, we don't have rights to that vision.
Gav,
we're on
no cash.
This is budget TV.
We are so budget, Gav, that we have to recycle each of these to get the 10 cents back to try and put them towards a slab for the next week. But we appreciate you watching. Mark Reynolds says...
Sorry. Mutt Reynolds.
Mark.
Oh, Mark, okay.
Mark Reynolds says, geez, that's a solid riff in the intro. Chat to Knee-Boy about that, but I don't mind the wow. You guys like the theme music? You've never seen this show.
Guilty. I'm with Drew.
Oh, we knew you.
Hang on. We have an intro? I thought it was just Louise talking.
This one comes in from Barklan, and he says, Hoyles looks like a pug that's on vacation in the south of France. What's a pug?
It's a compliment, isn't it?
What's a pug?
It's a little dog.
Those little dogs with their face like...
You don't look like a pug.
I'm not
in the south of France.
I'm not offended by it because south of France is a...
You've got nice
You'd
flow.
like to be a pug in the south of
You've
France.
got great flow.
You think you offended me? I'm unoffendable, mate. So
I was a pug in the south of France for 4 years.
paid well until they stopped paying.
Then I was out.
I got one more. This comes from Boar Prod. He looks like an interesting cat, the Boar Prod. Anyway, he says, this show is like the Seinfeld of Australian rugby. The same 4 people sitting around talking. Hoyles as Jerry, always dressed so neat and thin. Not there's anything wrong with that. Shula Shawn is Kramer. Louis the metaphorical get out Elaine, shove in the chest to keep the guys honest. And that just leaves Drew as, yep, the eccentric misfit that is George Constanza. Serenity now. That is a great comment.
I read that comment. I didn't understand it because I've never watched Seinfeld.
No.
See, even I've watched Seinfeld.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of Seinfeld.
I was more of a Friends guy.
I know it well.
I was more of a Friends.
Were ya?
The irony was,
Mate,
I was actually going to go...
Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, these Goudreau. Why wouldn't
To be
you
fair,
Friends?
I think Seinfeld was a couple of years, like we're similar ages. It was a little bit older, I think.
Come to my... Yeah, nice.
All right.
Back.
I was going to Jerry Seinfeld tonight, funnily enough. I was
Well,
going
yeah.
to go to
I
the
didn't watch.
and cheese.
I didn't watch it at the time. I've just rewatched it since. Yeah.
I didn't rush home to
No, I
watch
just
Seinfeld.
watch good stuff, so like the Aussie Rugby show. Yeah. Actually, I just said I didn't watch it.
Thank you, Boar Prod, and thanks to everyone else who continues to drop comments on YouTube, especially the Kiwis who keep giving us the love as well. Keep them rolling in right below.
Kia ora.
Aussie Rugby Show, mailbag time. Let's dive right in. Question for the show. This is from Eddie G85 on Instagram. Gary Ablett played the AFL Grand Final with a broken shoulder. What is the worst injury a player has played on with that you know of?
There's the iconic one, the great Slaggy Miller down at Manly and played with the Wallabies as well. Had his nose crushed in a game at Manly Oval. back in the day, toothbrushes were made of timber. Took a toothbrush, snapped it in half, stuck one half up one nostril, the other up the other to try and keep his nose open and kept going. Like hardcore. The great Slaggy. I don't know, what have you guys got?
Yeah, I don't know if I can top that, Drew.
I don't know if I could top that. I don't think, no. I mean, there's always, broken bones and fractures and things, but nothing too crazy. I mean, that was pretty good from Gary.
What's the most painful injury you've had?
Don't bring that up.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, no, that was probably more just mentally, the ankle one.
That
I got
was
on a whistle
horrific.
pretty quick, so I was
That was horrific.
the
That
person
was
sitting in
bad
the
to
top row
watch.
at Suncorp by the end of it. I was all right. But yeah, I think nowadays as well, you just go in and get a jab, and Gary Ablett wouldn't have felt that until after the game, so it wasn't that courageous of him.
Jeez. Right.
Obviously joking, it was.
Yeah.
You don't feel it in the moment.
It's better to get an injury now than it was in old toothbrush days. Steve Hoyles. This is from a mate of yours, I'm assuming is a mate, Ben Alexander, on
Mr.
Twitter.
Boyson, yeah.
What has Steve Hoyles been doing to his hair? He used to be going bald.
You know what? I think it's just the angle. I'm still going bald. I'm thinning on this side, much heavier, and I'm sitting next to a guy who's got nothing. So that obviously makes it.
When will you concede?
I want to get to 40, which is this time next year.
I just wanted to get to 30.
I think you're at risk of getting a little Mapatazzi at the front.
Yeah, I'm going to have
I think like,
love a Mapatazzi, don't you, Drew? I think I'm going to be one of those blokes that's got really thick hair here with not much
looks
there.
like you're receding a little bit more behind that little front tuft.
Look, I tell you what, Benny Alexander's not dealing with a full head of hair at the moment. He's no knee boy.
He's lost more hair than he's lost weight, and he's very lean at the moment.
He's looking
Runs
a million.
a lot.
He does.
Ben Alexander.
Park runner.
Pound on the pavement.
This one is from Simo Hay on Twitter. Was Samu Karevi available for selection for this Tri-Nations? We were talking about this before the show, about the fact that no overseas players had been picked. The sort of floodgates hadn't been opened to pick everyone that was overseas. We haven't talked about this for a little while. How are you feeling at this point of the sort of Tri-Nations setup? Should we have gone to those players that are abroad?
Well, I mean, I think if we don't win the Tri-Nations, it shows that we probably should have. I think there's a great opportunity for us to go out there and get some silverware. There's some players that are the top of their game for our country. They're Australian. They're eligible. Like they flirted with us all and said that they're going to relax it and pick two players from outside, and then they didn't pick anyone. So I just think that, especially at the time where we don't have a 10 playing 10, we've got inexperience throughout the midfield. I think someone like a Samu or someone of that ilk would have been a pretty handy addition.
The one position I feel as though we probably should have would have been Tolu Latu. I think his ability on the ball and his line-out throwing, our line-out throwing has been a concern. But at the same time, I look back and go, well, if we had brought in Skelton and Arnold, we wouldn't have seen Matt Phillips shine. If we had brought in Samu Karevi, we wouldn't have seen Hunter shine.
Team.
I get that.
You pick your best.
But with COVID and all the other stuff, but we also don't know these guys put their hand up and want to play. That's the biggest thing.
Well, or if they were going to be able to from their current contract.
And when you said it's just COVIDs, you don't know how difficult that was.
We could honestly talk about this for an hour, the pros and cons of it.
We probably couldn't.
Lose concentration.
We'll say this though, imagine how much better we're going to be come July next year when the inbounder is against France, and we've got those guys with that benefit of a whole Tri-Nations together.
Really
youngsters.
glad that you brought up France, because that's a brilliant segue into this one. From your brother, who's a big fan of your show, show, not your show, this show.
Our show. It's my show. It's mine.
His tweet from
my brother and it's my show.
His tweet from Bronson Mitchell. Which three people, past or present, do you take to enjoy France 2023, and how long until you're deported?
Oh,
great question.
I mean, he's not getting a run.
Good lead.
Sorry, Bronson.
That's all he's asking. No,
I took you to the
me.
World Cup in England. You don't get another one. You'd have to take a few mates, wouldn't you? I'd take my mate Chicken from school.
I love Chicken. Chickzilla.
He seems like a value chicken.
That's my mate.
Yeah. Who else I'd say? I'd take maybe... I couldn't split the three. Curtly, Swoop and Get, so I'm
Curly's
taking
already over there. So.
He's already
there.
over there.
It's funny you mention that. I was looking at Airbnb yesterday. I was chasing chateaus in France.
Oh yeah.
For 2023, whole group of us are going to find a chateau. I'm checking out villas, 10 bedders. Come stay with us.
What area?
Come up short.
South.
We were looking at Biarritz because it feels
Do you
like
reckon we'll still be
surfing.
going with this show by 2023? Are we going to?
How long have you been working on TV for, Lou?
I know that working on this show won't be able to pay for us to get there, but hopefully
There's also
it's still
no one
going.
to sack us from the show.
We can take it where we want to take it.
I only got to the World Cup last year for 1.5 days played a classic Wallabies game and got home and was back working on air the whole time, and I promised myself I'm not missing another World Cup, so I'll be there
so special.
at some stage. I can't.
With who?
I'll
So
take the whole
special.
family. Honestly, it's a take your kids out of school type experience. Yeah,
Chateau?
definitely.
I might leave
Chateau
my
over the
kids in
floor.
school. I think I might leave my kids in school.
Fair, probably over there in school already. True.
I'm just really open to that.
Would explain the bills. No, it's bad. Next question. Next one.
That's it. That's all I got.
good.
We're going to wrap the show up now.
Yeah, let's wrap
Are you
it up.
happy?
Yeah, wrap it up.
Drew, Aussie, Sean, thank you so much for your company once again. Anything else you want to add? You're all good.
No, all good.
Good work, Pug.
Au revoir.
So good with the languages and countries. Guys, thanks so much for your company again. We'll see you next week for our final episode of the year. Hope you join us then.